Today we have a very special guest. His name is Ryan Hendrickson, and he's a retired Special Forces engineer in the U.S. Army. Ryan has had many military deployments, has very, very big experience in a very special field that Ukraine really direly requires right now. It's demining. He has been to Iraq, Afghanistan, a lot of other countries, and his decorations include the Purple Heart, the Silver Star, 4 Bronze Stars, and Army Commendation Medal with Valor. So, Ryan, hello. Thank you for having the time, and thank you for visiting us on our podcast about Ukrainian stuff.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys having me on.
Before we begin asking you anything very, detailed about the work you do as a Ukrainian, and I think Mark will agree with me, why did you even come here? Why did you make that decision? And how did that happen?
So it actually happened last March. I know I was working as a contractor in Afghanistan, and when we closed down Afghanistan and withdrawed, I remember kind of just being lost at what I wanted to do with my life. And, I've dedicated my entire military career to Afghanistan. And now what was now what? As everybody watched, the news and everything in February of last year, I kept feeling this drive to want to go over and help, but I didn't really know how. And, so I just, the middle of March, I quit my job and headed over to try and figure out what I could do to help out. I knew I didn't really want to fight. I'd done plenty of that in my military career. There definitely had to be something else I could do, and it came in the form of evacuating people out of areas that the Russians were moving into. So I started driving vans and buses and helping out a missionary organization, YWAM. Started helping them out with evacuating. And then as people started to move back into their homes, as the Russians were moving east, and civilians started to come back to their homes, they started to deal with and get injured and killed by landmines, booby traps, and stuff like that. And so I started off with just kind of an awareness thing for the children. Don't pick up this, don't touch that, stay away from this, especially those PFM-1 butterfly mines, stuff like that. And then it turned into, there were some Ukrainian sapper units that were saying, yeah, we were just told we're sappers today. We don't know how to do this. And well, let me help train you guys. Let me help show you guys this equipment. And then slowly, it turned into something that, it gave me a lot of fulfillment with helping people out in that way. And it gave me this purpose. And so I left in May of 22, came back in August. And my buddy said, hey, there's a bunch of farmers out in the Izum area. Not right in Izum. That would have been in August last year. That would have been bad news for me, but it was in that area. And the farmers they were saying like, well, the government doesn't have the people to help us. Everybody is, they're busy fighting the war. We're going to remove these mines ourselves. And you just kept hearing reports of farmers getting killed, tractors rolling over landmines. Everybody's heard the reports. And my buddy said, hey, my family, they have a farm out here. Can you go and help them? Yeah, I can go help them. So I went out there and started working with some of the territory defense sapper unit. And again, these guys, they were designated as sappers, but the training just wasn't there because it's just, the capability to do that at that point in time last year wasn't there. So said, okay, yeah, let's do a week, 10 days of training, and then let's go out and get busy. And all of a sudden that was that was kind of what I was looking for. It just all clicked, and I was like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do, probably for the rest of my life. And so I came back, after that mission, started up our nonprofit, our 501c3, and then went back in November to Kherson. And November, December, I was in Kherson helping out with DS&S, and then we became a registered Ukrainian demining organization. And went back in April to basically July. Just got home and kind of been going. We'll be heading back in September, and we buy we come home, we buy equipment, detectors. We bring it over. We train a Ukrainian unit up on it. We demine with them. That's kind of our way of vetting them. We demine with them, and then we donate all the equipment over to them. And then we demine for a month, 2 months, come home and do it all over again.
So, Melania mentioned you obviously had immense experience in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and in South America. Mm-hmm. And you obviously had experience with IEDs, with mines. How's mining how Russian mining differs from other countries? Is there some special pattern? Is there more density? Is there more equipment they have, which makes it different from everything you've seen? Or is it kind of the same?
Yeah, it's not the same at all. Dealing with, the Taliban, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, whatever insurgent group that you want to talk about, they're very, very good at targeting with IEDs. So the biggest difference, when people ask me, and I get this question all the time, what's the biggest difference between demining in Afghanistan or running operations in Afghanistan and Ukraine? The biggest difference is the sheer number of mines. There are millions and millions of mines in Ukraine. In Afghanistan, it's different. Yeah, there's a lot of IEDs, but they target us with IEDs. It's not indiscriminate laying of IEDs just in hopes that the U.S. or the enemy is going to go in this direction or use this route or use this infill area. That's they don't indiscriminately. They target us with IEDs. They know the routes we're going to use. They watch. They gather intel on us for months and months and months, and then they use IEDs against us because they've learned what our tactics, techniques, and procedures are, or our patterns are. The Russians, on the other hand, they have the capability to lay millions and millions of landmines, and they do. And so the biggest difference is between Ukraine and Afghanistan or Ukraine and Iraq is the sheer number of mines being laid. And the Russians' mindset with it is, I'll put 1,000 out here. You may find 999, but one of them's going to get you, and they're pretty. It's pretty effective.
Wow.
The biggest part of the Ukraine war right now that people don't talk about. People talk about tanks, artillery, trench warfare. They talk about mechanized and stuff like that. But the biggest shaping factor of this war is landmines. Both ground force commanders, whether you're Ukrainian or you're Russian, both ground force commanders have to deal with landmines. Everything's landmined. All the farm fields are landmined. All the routes are landmined. And if the routes aren't landmined, then artillery has target reference points along those routes. That's the reason why farm fields are used so much. And that's the reason why they're so landmined. But yeah, both any movement or offense or counteroffense or assault or anything like that, the commander has to take into account landmines, 100%. And people don't talk a lot about it, but Ukraine is, in my opinion, the most mined country in the world now.
Oh.
So, have any modern militaries ever even come across anything like that in terms of mining density, or is it something that like has never been observed before?
Yeah, World War II was a very landmine heavy conflict. Serbia, Bosnia, heavy landmine conflict there. We're tracking what's going on in Southeast Asia between Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. Lots of mines still there from the Vietnam War and conflicts, before and after that one. Landmines are extremely effective. They're a mental. Just the aspect mentally, you are going someplace and you have to deal with the hidden threats, the threats you can't see that are underneath the ground. Mentally, it's exhausting. I remember in Afghanistan when we'd be up clearing for an assault, or we were going to do a clearance operation of a village or a valley or something like that, and we're up in the front with our detectors clearing the path for the assaulters. Yeah, it's extremely mentally tasking, because not only are you worried about what you can't see underneath the ground, but you're right up in the front, and who's going to get shot first, or who's going to walk into that ambush first. Thankfully, in Ukraine, we don't deal with frontline stuff like that, so I'm not worried about getting shot. I'm just worried about what's underneath the ground. And we've been to some extremely complex minefields in Ukraine where you have simple anti-tank mines, which are protected by anti-personnel mines, which are protected by bounty mines, which are protected by booby traps and everything else. It's like, how do you clear all this out? And just very slow, very methodical. But and we had a guy injured this trip. One of our deminers, he's in Germany now, but he stepped on an anti-personnel mine when we were clearing anti-tank mines in June. So yeah, the threat's real, and it's just the sheer number of mines. I've been to one farm field where there was over 700 anti-tank mines just that we were able to locate. There was probably thousands of them, and that's only one field.
Jeez.
It's insane. I've never dealt with numbers like this before, ever.
You mentioned Bosnia, Yugoslavia. We have like this example of Croatia, for instance. The war ended there 20 years ago, and demining is still ongoing despite billions of money donated and spent for demining. Looking at that, can you did you think about what's going to be like? What's the demining process is going to be in Ukraine? What should we be prepared for? Is it like hundreds of years of demining? Or is there maybe like technology changed it, or is just sheer people like you going with like good old equipment and making stuff happen methodically and for tens of years?
In my honest opinion, and again, this is just my opinion. I don't want to get tore up on Twitter over this, but I don't think Ukraine will ever be completely demined. There's too many landmines, whether it's from World War II or from 2014 till now. There's too many landmines in too many areas. I think the way ahead right now is focusing on critical infrastructure and agriculture. Agriculture demining. Ukraine feeds the world. And so agricultural demining is key. Getting that grain back to the Black Sea ports and to the countries that some of them depend on it for their very survivability. So in the beginning, in the interim of it, demining needs to focus on what gets Ukraine back up and running, and gets the other countries that depend on Ukrainian mostly agriculture exports. Secures them also, and then you start to move out from there. But with the amount of indiscriminate mining that's happened, I just don't see how it's possible to ever fully say that Ukraine is 100% mine free. I don't think it's possible.
Yeah. So, like, I just want to know, because I'm not a military person and I don't know that much about landmines, definitely, even if I mean, that's not my thing, but like, so they literally just take the time to, put these things everywhere, dig them in. I mean, it took them a lot of time to do that. I assume, and they did it in the first couple of months they were here. So is Russia that good at mining? Are they that professional, and are they that efficient, and are they quick? Because obviously underestimating Russia is a bad idea. Nobody should ever do that. But they have not been as successful as they wanted to be on the battlefield. So I cluelessly assumed that that had to do with every single kind of part of their military strategy. But what about and you say that we have these thousands and thousands of mines in Ukraine,
millions.
So like, are they that millions? Are they that good?
So don't forget, it's not just the Russians that are mining. Ukrainians have to. They're putting in anti-tank mines too. If you look in Chernihiv region along the Belarusian border, you have to put in defensive mine belts because they're just going to roll through with mechanized units. You have to slow them down some way, and so it's not about being good. You can take an anti-tank mine laying machine and put in 1,000 mines in one day. But we're just talking about anti-tank mines right now. All of the scatterable mines, the sub-munitions, the PFM-1 butterfly mines, those are all delivered through canister systems, whether it's an aircraft dropping them, artillery shooting them, mortar. You can put 5,000 butterfly mines in a field in a matter of hours. The same thing with the other scatterable mines. It doesn't take much. To put in anti-personnel mines, especially if they're just surface laid. You're just tossing them out there. We have a fighting position here. We need to defend our fighting position. How do you defend it? Landmines.
Is technology in demining moving somewhere? Are we like ahead from what we had 20 years ago, for instance? Should we expect something like new in this, or are we just going to do that as we did in Croatia, Yugoslavia, whatever?
So there's a lot of advancements in demining, and because of what's going on in Ukraine right now, everybody's seeing those demining machines that are coming in look like gigantic tractors with the big whips on the front. There's a lot of different, we're seeing the drones with the different detectors on it to try and help map out minefields and stuff like that. But in the end, technology is only going to go so far. If you clear a field with a demining machine, do you have the confidence that technology that you can walk up to the farmer and say, hey, your field is clear and you are good to go? I don't. You still got to put people on there to make sure those mines are removed completely. You still have to make sure that machine did its job, because if you're wrong or if something was missed, that guy could end up dead. That farmer or that child or any numbers of things.
So humans are still more reliable in that regard than technologies that we have.
Correct.
Okay, and then I have, from your observations, you've mentioned, meeting people, the sappers before from Ukrainian military, and you mentioned that some of them actually were like on the first day on their job, and that's completely understandable in terms of how this war has been going on. But are Ukrainian sappers, are Ukrainian miners actually equipped well enough to do this kind of work? Because again, as you said, humans are like the last kind of stand between a relatively safe field and a farmer.
Yes and no. Now, so I mostly work with emergency services, whether it's DS&S or just I call them sapper units, but a lot of what we do is training civilians up and then equipping them, and then that continuity always with them, demining with them, stuff like that. But as far as DS&S goes, yes, the training that they receive via the experience I have is the Kharkiv schoolhouse, the Kharkiv DS&S schoolhouse up there. The training they receive is amazing. A lot of the units, let me back up. Some of the units are very well equipped. A lot of them are not. It's a funding thing, and it's just getting the equipment in. A lot of the handheld detectors that are being used in Ukraine are just not functional for the environment. So like the Garrett or the Valen detectors, you can't work with them, for example, under power lines or something like that. Whereas in the Chea detector, it costs more money, but you can work with it under power lines, and you can work with it within close proximity of other detectors, stuff like that. So yes, the training is there. I believe the equipment is not. And it's an ongoing battle to equip these demining units and getting them what they need. But then again, that's right now the focus is the Ministry of Defense. Once the war is over, or a ceasefire, or whatever is going to happen, then it's probably going to turn to Ministry of Interior for demining. Demining is going to be key because you can't rebuild until you demine. Once the focus changes from, hey, we need HIMARS to detectors, then I also there'll probably be a lot more advanced equipment coming in. But right now, the majority of the equipment that's coming in that is making this the job safer for the deminers are donations from other countries, whether it's demining machines or you name it. So yeah, right now the focus is war. Once the focus changes over to reconstruction, then yeah, I can see, again, just in my opinion, I can see a lot more equipment and the proper equipment coming in. But this is all opinionated, but in my humble opinion, the DS&S guys are doing so much with very little, and it's dangerous because when it comes to demining, yeah, you can have all the heart in the world, one wrong step, and that's it.
How can people who watch us, for instance, help the initiative and help demining? Maybe volunteer or donate money somewhere or something like that.
Mm-hmm. So for us, we have a website that's landmineremoval.org, and we're coming back in September. We're going to be bringing back over more handheld detectors, remote pull equipment, and stuff like that. And then again, we train a unit up and donate it over to them. There's other ways of supporting demining. If you go on the emergency services website for Ukraine, I think they have a link there. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, as far as what we do and supporting Tip the Spear landmine removal, it's through landmineremoval.org.
Okay, great. I was also wondering, of course, that question is a bit weird since, mines are dangerous everywhere and all sorts of mines are very dangerous. But basing that question on what you said about how Ukraine probably is never going to be completely mine-free. Mm-hmm. Which mines should Ukrainians be most concerned with, and which mines are, especially civilians, most prone to, not detect, but just come in contact with? Let's say, put it this way.
Yeah. So that all depends on where you're talking about. So right now, if you're in the agricultural areas of Ukraine, the agricultural fields are pretty much completely demined, depending on what region you are in Ukraine. Because if you look at a farm field is normally flatter, and it gives you you can maneuver mechanized equipment, whether it's tanks or Bradleys or whatever, BMPs, whatever it is. You can maneuver them around a farm field. And a lot of the trench lines, from the videos we've watched on fighting in Ukraine, a lot of the trench lines are in the Plasadkas. And so the Plasadkas are the natural windbreak or the man-made windbreak for the farm fields. Well, that's the reason why the farm fields are so mined, is because a lot of those fighting positions and the front lines, as you would say, they are in the Plasadkas or the tree lines of the farm fields. So yeah, if you're out in the villages, farm fields, TM62 anti-tank mines are a really, really big deal, and a lot of them are protected by the anti-personnel mines, usually the PMN4 anti-personnel mines. And then you get to the areas that the Russians want to they want to detour Ukrainian freedom of movement, or to put in as we call it, a hasty minefield. So a lot of those are going to be those PFM1 butterfly mines, and there's canisters. They can shoot them out by the thousands from a vehicle, and usually the people that come in contact with them are going to be the farmers that are out in their fields, or unfortunately, because they do look like a toy, children. And this has been a problem from Ukraine to Afghanistan, those PFM1 butterfly mines. But yeah, those are pretty much, when it comes to civilian casualties, and mainly children. That's what really, I guess that's my weak point right there, is a child getting hurt. Anybody getting injured is bad, got it. But when a child gets hurt, that really bothers me. As you know, I guess, I'm human, so.
Yeah.
But those butterfly mines, the PFM ones. But yeah, there's just, it depends on where you go. There's so many nasty mines out there and nasty minefields. The good news is, the good news and the bad news. The good news is most of the villagers know where these are at and they stay away from them. The bad news is most of the reason why they know where they're at is because someone's been injured or killed.
Yeah.
Whoa, yeah, that's we
That's
had
some heavy stuff, man. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really cannot underappreciate what you're doing, and considering like every job has its end at some point, but like considering that you understand that it's you will never demine the place completely, and it will always be a danger there, and you're still doing that, and you're doing one of the most dangerous jobs out there. It's a big thank you from all of us for this initiative, and thank you for coming today and telling us.
Yeah, the truth. Is there anything you would like to tell our audience, who are mostly non-Ukrainians, actually? Would you like to tell them something from your perspective and your experience in Ukraine? Yeah,
the biggest thing I like to tell people is, as time moves on, people that aren't there, non-Ukrainians, they tend to forget about, as the news headlines moves on to something else, something bigger, shinier in the world is happening, and then the headlines move on. There are hundreds and thousands of Ukrainian civilians being injured and killed every year because of landmines. Don't let yourself forget about what's going on right in the back door of Europe. Don't forget about the suffering that's going on, because it's easy to do that. People get caught up in the rush of life. And and if this isn't in their face every single day, or something real wowing comes out of it, it's very easy to forget about it. But there's a lot of suffering and there's a lot of pain going on in Ukraine. So don't allow yourself to forget about it, I guess is what I ask of people. But
Yeah. Thank you. That is a very good message, final message for our viewers. Thank you very much, Ryan, for being with us. Thank you for everything that you do and for everything you've told us.
Yep.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you.
And thank you everyone for listening and for watching. And don't forget to donate to our cause. Don't forget to donate to Ryan's cause. We'll leave the link below. And subscribe to our channel and like. We'll have more experts here, more people with hands-on experience and just good stuff.
Yeah, and see you next week.